All right, let me just drop that in there. Just putting some notes in here. Great. Okay, so if we can just advance to the next slide. So for those of you who may not know who Engage to Excel is or everything that we offer, I wanted to just share a little bit about what we do. So, recognition and rewards is a key specialty area, but we offer so much more when it comes to helping organizations find and keep talent. So, as you can see on the screen, from hiring and pre boarding and onboarding solutions to online and in person manager development and training courses to measuring engagement and the voice of the employee through our survey tools, we have the solutions to help with a lot of today's challenges. And of course, we'd love to chat with you if those are challenges that you are seeing in your organization, and we'd love to help. So, next, I'm going to introduce Jeff. He is our president of recognition and engagement here at Engage to Excel. He is going to deliver today's session, so we're excited about that. But we're also joined by a few of our other experts at our organization. That includes our SVP of Sales, Solutions, and Professional Services, Emily Gatton. She'll be in the back helping answer questions in the chat. Also, if anything comes up, feel free to ask her. And then we are also pleased to have Kathleen Erdy, our marketing manager, who's going to help facilitate the session. We're going to drop Jeff's information also into the chat in 1 second in case anybody wants to reach out to him directly after the call. Okay, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Melissa. I'm going to spend the first part of this webinar today reviewing the results from a 2024 survey, which will help inform some of the strategies that I'll be covering in the second part of the webinar. We've got a really big audience today, and I know that our audience members are in organizations with varying levels of maturity when it comes to recognition and rewards programs. And that's okay. I want everyone joining this session to be able to walk away with some learnings and actionable insights. So I've tried to structure the session today so there will be some time at the end for Q&A. I know Melissa covered that, but by all means, if you have a question along the way, feel free to ask, and my team will jump in. All right. So one other thing I wanted to mention too is we're going to be doing a fun giveaway towards the latter part of the presentation, so stay tuned for that. All right, next slide. Before we get going, I think it's important to level the playing field a bit and make sure that we're all aligned in terms of some terminology that you'll see in the survey results. So it's important to decouple recognition from rewards and understand that recognition really represents the intangible. So we define it as the intangible acknowledgement of individuals and teams for their behaviors, personal efforts, and/or contributions. Within recognition, you'll also see different types of programs. Two really popular ones are length of service recognition, also known as milestone recognition or service awards, and then performance recognition. So if you look at those two, length of service, we look at as a way to acknowledge and celebrate an employee for their years of service at a company or institution. And then performance recognition is really the process of acknowledging employees for their achievements, contributions, and behaviors. And then lastly, our definition of employee engagement, the extent to which employees are motivated to contribute to organizational success and are willing to apply discretionary effort to accomplishing tasks important to the achievement of organizational goals. And I think a key word there is discretionary effort, stemming from that motivation. All right. It's also worth noting that we've been studying really the concept of employee engagement and experience in conjunction with Dr. Jack Wiley, our Chief Scientific Officer and renowned organizational psychologist for many, many years. We've integrated the elements of his respect framework, which is an acronym that summarizes what employees most want from the organization in which they work, into our Engage to Excel solutions. So what this framework that you see here essentially is telling us is that the employee experience is largely shaped by practices that senior leaders and managers are following. We know that successful senior managers set the strategy, they demonstrate concern, they reiterate the value of employees. We know that successful managers demonstrate respect, they're effective at recognition and making it meaningful. They support career development, and they build an employee's overall confidence. So it really all starts with leaders and managers, and that's going to be a central theme that I'll build upon today. Turning to the second column, we know from our research around what employees most want in an employee experience that after fair pay, recognition is the most desired item. And consistently, it's a driver of employee engagement, has been for many decades. And then there are 5 other most desired items by employees: exciting work, you've got security, education and career growth, positive work conditions, and then truth, primarily from senior leadership. When you pay attention to what employees most want, you see those gains in employee engagement and performance confidence. So you see the employee experience drivers all trickling over to that organizational capability column with employee engagement and performance confidence. And so really the ROI of employee recognition is very well understood today. So let's dive into the most recent survey that we did. This was a survey of 1,500 individuals in a panel survey representing all major industries, varying levels of tenure of the participants that were covered. Of this sample, it's also pretty cool to recognize that 58% of individuals were actively looking for a job and 42% were not. Kind of an interesting, tidbit. And if anybody is interested, we did do a piece around what individuals think about recruitment processes as well. We're really trying to focus more on, what is germane to recognition and rewards today. But before I start unveiling some of the data, let's jump into our first poll question. So Melissa, can you help us launch this poll question?
I sure can. We're going to put that up on the screen right now so everybody can see it. What percentage of people surveyed do you think believed employees are more committed to stay as a result of employee recognition? Your options are less than 30%, 31 to 45%, 46 to 59%, 60 to 79%, and then 80% or greater. We'll give everybody another 20 seconds or so. Still coming in. Almost everybody's taken the survey.
Yeah, we can give it a few more seconds.
Great. Yeah. All right. I'm going to end the poll. Get your last minute answers in. Great. Okay, and I'm going to share the results. Jeff?
All right. So what percentage of employees surveyed do you think believed employees are more committed to stay as a result of employee recognition? So less than 30%. We had 5%. We had 7% for 31 to 45%. 25% said that 46 to 59% range. 47% said 60 to 79%, and then 17% said 80% or greater. So obviously there is a sentiment that it is on the higher side, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So we can keep moving to the next slide. So Let's now dive into some of the survey highlights. So in our survey, we asked some questions that really get to the business case of recognition, and we separated it based on performance recognition and service recognition. So the first one that we asked, if we could populate that, what percentage of those who believe these programs increase employee engagement? So actually the same percentage. Employees said that 78% so that they believed either performance or length of service-based recognition increased employee engagement. Now, the second one, which ties into the poll question that I asked, percentage of employees who believe that employees are more committed to stay as a result of either performance or length of service recognition, just 1 point off, very high 70s. When you think about high 70s, you're talking about very favorable results. Not overly surprising, given the context I gave about the ROI for recognition being really well understood, but this is even further validation from the voice of employees. So you guys were pretty much spot on, from a polling question that highest category was that 60 to 79%. So you guys were right in the sweet spot. All right. The next part is interesting. We looked at the percentage of people who said that their employer didn't offer or were unaware that these programs existed. Very low mid-range scores here, 46% and 44% respectively for both performance and service. So despite the business value of recognition, we've got a long way to go in offering and marketing these programs. And I'll have a lot more to say about that later in the presentation. So next we looked at recognition preferences. We first looked at what type of recognition is most important to you. Recognition by the immediate manager or supervisor rose to the top at 39%. Number two was recognition for performance. Again, we defined that earlier in terms of the behaviors or results or accomplishments. And then recognition for service, a very close third. Now, while not on this slide, recognition from senior leadership was actually the fourth at 30%, and recognition from your peers, number 5 at 23%. We also looked at frequency of recognition, and about a third said that less frequently than a month was preferred. 38% said that at least monthly, some sort of recognition moment monthly is preferred. And 29% said more frequent than once a month. Now, of course, this is a law of averages. So, performance recognition, as we know, should be timely and meaningful and not on a schedule. But this gives you a sense of what employees are generally thinking in terms of frequency. So, if you're the type of manager that's only giving recognition during your quarterly check-ins, for example, you're probably missing the mark for many of your team members. All right. Continuing on here, we also asked one pertaining to being recognized and rewarded appropriately. So I'd love to see this figure for yes, much higher. It ended in at 62%. This is really a mid-range score, which tells me that there's a lot of room for improvement in this area. I think this is where recommendation engines, AI can certainly help. For instance, in our platform, we have a recognition helper that helps users select the right number of points for the behaviors or results exhibited. So there's certainly opportunity to help make sure that recognition is fair and appropriate. But you see 62% yes, 28% no, and then 10% who are not sure. So not too great of a number here in the uncertain camp at 10%. All right, we have another second poll. We have our second poll question. So I want to shift our attention to a little bit the earlier part of the talent life cycle. And Melissa, I'll turn it over to you to kick this polling question off.
Sure. So the next question is, what do you think is the top reason for offer acceptance? You have recognition, appreciation, and respect, exciting work, security, pay, education and career excuse me, conditions, or truth.
And these were derived really from that respect framework that I mentioned to you earlier, that really covers the 7 things that employees most want in the organization in which they work.
All right, we'll just give it another 10 seconds here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and reveal the results. There you go, Jeff.
All right. So we've got top reason for offer acceptance: recognition, appreciation, and respect, 25%, exciting work, 9%, security at 4%, fair pay, 40%, education and career growth at 13%, conditions 7%, and truth 2%. So looks like the number 1 that you guys chose was pay, number 2, recognition, appreciation, and respect, and then number 3, exciting work. Okay. Well, let's go to this next area of our research, which was around the impact of recognition on recruiting outcomes, like offer acceptance and offer rejection. So for those of you who have been through, for those that had been through a recent recruitment process, we were able to produce these top 3 reasons for offer acceptance or rejection. And interestingly, they were the same items, just slightly different percentages for either acceptance or rejection. So recognition, appreciation, and respect, number 1, fair compensation, number 2, and job fit, number 3. So interesting that, in the poll, the number 1 that you selected was around fair pay. And then number 2 was recognition, appreciation, and respect. In the actual research, it's flopped. Recognition, appreciation, and respect came in at number 1, although a 26% versus a 23% for offer acceptance, not a huge difference. A little more, a little greater of a difference when it comes to offer rejection, with lack of recognition and appreciation and respect being the clear front runner. Here's an example. Sometimes I get asked, like, what's an example of, feeling appreciated during the recruitment process? So, let's say as a candidate, I'm asked to submit work samples. As a recruiter or hiring manager, I could thank the candidate for providing those work samples and take the time to say something specific, such as maybe it's a sample blog that someone submitted. Thank you for submitting that sample on revamping recognition. I appreciate your passion to help organizations improve their experience. We all love feedback. And the point that I'm trying to make is that it really needs to start earlier in the talent life cycle. All right. Let's go here to number 4. So another area of research was around willingness to leave your current employer. Again, I mentioned earlier when I talked about the respect framework that in terms of what employees want most, fair pay is number 1 and recognition is number 2. Mentioned that early on, even though for offer acceptance and rejection, it was swapped. That comes to life very clearly here in this survey as well, with concern about fair and equitable compensation coming out as number 1, and then lack of recognition, appreciation, and respect at number 2. Job security was a very close third, so really just 1 percentage point difference here. But if you look at fair pay, lack of recognition, appreciation, respect, two of the most important drivers. All right, we're getting here to our last area of research that I want to cover today, which is around employees' perceptions of onboarding experiences. So first impressions really matter when it comes to onboarding. We talked about the importance of recognition and appreciation before day one, but day one is super important as well. Nearly 2/3 said that their first day will affect their decision to stay more than a month. And then you have nearly 2/3 again who say that their complete onboarding experience will impact their decision to stay more than a year. We have a large, just as an example, we have a large healthcare client who recently revamped their recognition moments for their first year of employment. Just to kind of give an example of what that now consists of. On day one, they do communication, but they also have a branded physical item that they send. After 30 days, they have an email communication and then an automatic deposit of points. After 60 days, kind of changing it up a little bit, they do the email, but also a t-shirt that can be ordered via the site with size selection. And then after 90 days, they do another email with a choice of a jacket, which can be ordered via the site. And then after a year, they do another communication along with an automatic deposit of 1,000 points. So really focusing on all those different increments throughout that first year is definitely something that we're seeing more and more of. All right. So in terms of the survey takeaways, we've given you some insights to help you make the case for recognition. I strongly believe that recognition is more important now than ever, especially in this era of increasingly dispersed teams. So very, very important. Number two, understanding your recognition preferences of employees. We talked a little bit about, things like the types of recognition or the frequency, but there's other things too. Thinking about like public versus private recognition is another area that you can inquire about. Number three, recognition starts before day one. So I think we've been really clear about our strong belief in that area. I know that the way that HR is structured in some organizations can make that challenging. I spent many years in human resources, but if you own recognition and rewards, collaborate with your team members who own the candidate and onboarding experiences to be able to really explain the importance of recognition and appreciation during that pre-hire stage. Another stat not shared here from prior research is that 6 out of 10 candidates who have accepted offers will consider other employment if they're not connecting with someone at that new organization between offer acceptance and the first day on the job. So that stage is really, really critical. Number four, knowing that recognition from the manager is most important, really working with your managers to strengthen those recognition moments and make them more meaningful. That's really key. And a little spoiler alert, I'm not done talking about the role of the manager. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in our strategies that we can think about. And then lastly, integrating recognition and feedback mechanisms. This will only help from an employee retention standpoint. How do you do that? Well, one way is to highlight employee recognition received during performance check-ins or whatever type of rhythm that you have in your organization. Okay. So next, what we want to do here is take what we've learned from the research and apply that to some key strategies. And I want to give 3 key strategies to help you revamp and revitalize your recognition program. Let me just pause. Melissa, anything before we go into the strategies, anything in the chat happening?
No, not both Emily and I have been able to answer the questions that are coming through, so I think you can keep going.
Okay, great. Wonderful. And I think we're doing just fine on time. This was kind of really where I wanted to be for the discussion of the strategies. All right. So taking a holistic approach is my first strategy. From my vantage point, I see a lot of opportunity for organizations to improve in this area. You want to have a good mix of recognition. So while we know from the research shared that recognition from one's immediate supervisor or manager is top on the list, things like peer-to-peer recognition and organizational recognition are important too. So at Engage to Excel, for example, we have the recognition given throughout the year as a basis for annual organizational awards. So we've got categories like our BAM Award, our Rising Star Award, our Employee Engagement and Trifecta Awards. We really kind of take all of that goodness and recognition throughout the year and do some organizational awards to help reinforce. So that can be really important. Amplifying recognition and making it social is a key one too. So, a lot of platforms, including our own, have things like e-cards and badges. Badges have a little bit more clout than an e-card. They're very popular. And then having the workforce be able to like and comment on that recognition on a social feed really helps spread the word about all those recognition moments happening throughout the organization. So social is important. It's also important to mix it up with digital and physical. Physical items, especially durable, help cement that emotional tie to the organization. So really think about a mix of digital and physical. I think that example that I gave a bit earlier, that first year onboarding example, is a good way to do that. We've talked about the importance of recognition before day one. I did want to call out the results that we're seeing from one of our clients in the eye care industry. They do onboarding welcome boxes before day one. We actually do all the recruitment for this client, but they also do welcome boxes, and they've seen a 67% increase in the first day show rate. That first day show rate is now 99%, and a reduction in first 90-day turnover. So some pretty fantastic results. Again, tying nicely to the latter point around a mix of digital and physical. Giving people choice in terms of awards or rewards is also very important. That's why we have just an enormous global catalog, 200,000 plus items, to be able to really, personalize awards and rewards to individuals. And then celebrating personal milestones in addition to the career milestones. We have a client in the industrial products industry who was doing more of a traditional length of service program, celebrating major milestones, but they're now doing recognition, at 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and then adding gifts for life events, such as the birth of a baby or weddings. So that's pretty cool. And then lastly, I wanted to mention the graph in the upper right. It's our recognition calendar. This lists popular events, holidays, and industry-specific observances, really to help you, celebrate and recognize your workforce. I think with so many fun and unique days, it can help you prioritize recognition year-round. I know this is something that's available, Melissa, on our website, but our recognition calendar can certainly be sent to anybody that's interested. The other thing too is that recognition is, not a one size fits all. So I think that taking a holistic approach and adding more dimension to your program can really help set you up for greater success. So that's really the nuts and bolts of this strategy. Melissa, I know we have another poll question, which kind of gets a little bit around the thinking of how people are viewing this strategy.
Sure. And just to answer, I did just drop the link in the chat for everybody for recognition tools. Just go to that page, scroll to the next piece, and you can download that calendar for free. We don't charge or anything for that. So yes, poll question number 3 is taking a more holistic approach to recognition and engagement a strategy you're currently doing or considering?
We got 3 simple answers: yes, no, or not sure.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
We'll give everybody a few more seconds.
Yeah, another 10. They're still coming in. We do have somebody who responded as well, not doing now, but considering in the chat.
Okay. Yeah,
Cool.
and
All right, I'm
again,
going to
this was
end that now.
this was more just to get a sense of where people are at. So yeah, looks like 75% said yes, 21% not sure, and that's okay, and then 4% said no. Of course, there are some that already have a very holistic program and might not have that on their top list of strategies. Okay, very cool. Let's move to our next strategy, strategy number 2, improving the skills of the manager. So I mentioned before, I'm not done with this topic of the manager. This one is really near and dear to my heart. I think a focus in this area can really help create competitive advantage for your organization. Look at this stat here in the center right. Would you believe that 70% of managers have either received no people management training or their training was capped at 4 hours? Wow, we have an incredible opportunity in this area. Yet, employees reporting to effective managers are 15.4 times more likely to be high performers, 3.2 times more likely to stay with their employer. Pretty compelling data from Gartner. Effective recognition and engagement is really both an art and a science. It's not something that comes naturally to everybody. When we look at data from Dr. Jack Wiley's recent book, The Employee-Centric Manager, I've got a copy here, right, and we see that managers and employees are not aligned on recognition. And this is what you see in the upper right. When managers were asked the attribute of a manager that is most important, only 1%, just 1% said recognition. When employees were asked which employee-centric attribute is most important, 13% said recognition. That's a 12-point gap between what the manager thinks and the employee thinks. The gap was lesser when it came to rewarding performance contributions. And I'm not showing the full list of choices here, but the employee-centric manager book actually outlines those 8 attributes that employees want most from their manager. So managers need help. They need training. They need help on how to be specific and timely, because that makes recognition more meaningful. At Engage to Excel, we really espouse a rule that we call our 2-part specificity rule. And really what we say there is that in giving recognition, you have to articulate the action and the impact of the recognition. And our platform certainly helps facilitate that. But again, articulating the action and the impact of recognition. Managers need to make recognition personal, and understanding recognition preferences like public versus private recognition, really, really key. I also think there's an opportunity for managers to be creative about other forms of recognition. So from our earlier learnings in the presentation, we know that exciting work and education and career growth are other areas of the experience that employees care about. So giving an employee a special assignment or a mentor or an opportunity to learn new skills, these are powerful when turned into great recognition moments. So think about how equipped your managers are at doing all of this. And then on the performance management side, there's an incredible opportunity to create recognition moments during check-ins and after completion of goals. If behaviors and results aren't celebrated, it certainly does represent a missed opportunity. All right, so that's the second strategy. And moving on, I think we have some breaking news.
Yes, I wish I had some music and fanfare, but it's giveaway time. So, what I'd like to ask everybody is if you're interested and would like to receive a free copy of Dr. Jack Wiley's The Employee Centric Manager, the first 15 people who email us at info@engagetoexcel.com, which is in the webinar chat, you can easily copy it, with the subject ECM book and the message, I want the book, you will receive, if you're one of the 15 tomorrow, you will receive an email from Kathleen. So be on the lookout because she'll be asking for some shipping information. So we want to give and pause for a moment and give everybody an opportunity to do that if you're interested. Again, the first 15 people, the email is in the webinar chat, so it's easy to copy. And good luck. It's almost like I need Jeopardy music, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, right? You
But
get a
if you
book,
could pause for
you
a
get a
sec,
book.
you get a book, the Oprah Winfrey effect. Yes.
All
Great. We'll
right.
just pause there for a sec. Okay. All right. I'll send it back over to you, Jeff.
All right. And we will get to our third strategy. I try to keep it simple. Three. There's obviously a ton that we could talk about, but I wanted to give you three ones that were really kind of near and dear to my heart. Strategy number three is focusing on continuous marketing and communication. So this is an area we've had a lot of success in helping our clients. We know that, a set it and forget it strategy simply just does not work. Obviously, data is important to this strategy. And so it's important to use your program data to communicate effectively. Campaigns are a great way to draw attention to your program. So whether it's an e-card challenge, a points reminder, or a campaign geared towards specific events or holidays, these can be really, really effective. The communication really helps drive program utilization and adoption. And our data actually shows that when you increase the number of campaigns, your login rates to your platform go up. So we've done a lot of research in this area. It's a passion of ours in terms of running the campaigns for clients. In the bottom right, you can see example login data with no campaigns, 1 to 2 campaigns, and then 3+ campaigns. So 41% with no campaign, 61% with just a couple campaigns or less, and then 97% when you get to 3 campaigns or higher. We've been working with our chief analytics officer to do A/B testing as well around campaigns. You could do some pretty neat things when you start framing the messages in the campaigns from a loss or a gain standpoint. So from what I mean by that is, from a loss standpoint, it could be like, don't forget to use your points so that you don't lose them. A gain message could be around, you deserve to be rewarded for the points you've earned. So redeem your points today. It's a little bit more of the positive around, what you've earned. Both can be effective. There are places for both, gain and loss messaging, depending on the outcome that you're seeking. Another thing that you can do too, when we see a lot of organizations that do it, deploying recognition champions. It's another way to really bolster participation and excitement in your program. Really key at implementation, but important really throughout the life cycle of your program. And when implemented correctly, I think you can position it as a career development opportunity for those champions, and create some really awesome recognition moments within the organization. These champions really help promote recognition from within. And then lastly, it's really around surveying. So surveying your people to understand what they think, getting the voice of your employee. We obviously believe, pretty strongly in, regular surveys. We have our respect framework to understand how employees think and feel vis-a-vis what we know employees most want from our 35 plus years of research. But other surveys, like new hire, pulse, ad hoc, exit, all of these types of surveys throughout the talent lifecycle are important, but the most important element of it is not just getting the data, it's what you do with the data. And those action plans can really serve as a powerful communication tool, because again, it shows that you're focused on what's important to employees. It's also really important to be intentional with your marketing and communication strategy. And so one of the things that I recommend is a structured communication plan to really create that culture of recognition within your organization. And again, if you're working with, experts, from, Engage to Excel or another provider, this type of plan is really a must. All right. Melissa, I think we have our last polling question tied to this third strategy. Do you believe
We
your
do.
organization has the right marketing and communication strategy in place to maximize effectiveness of your programs? So how are you doing when it comes to marketing and communication?
And you have yes, no, and not sure for
Yeah.
options. I'll just give it another 5-7 seconds here. All right, I'm gonna end that poll, Jeff. Here are the results.
All right, so I get a mixed bag here. 47% say no. So hopefully you've gotten a few ideas here. 41% say yes, great. And then 12% not sure. Yeah, and this is one that, can be an evolving strategy, but again, hopefully you've taken away a few nuggets.
Okay.
All right. So with that, those are the strategies that I wanted to cover. I'm going to check in with the team here to see if there's any questions that have come in. I think we do have time for a few questions.
I do have one, Jeff, that just came in. What are the biggest challenges for HR teams in influencing managers to improve their recognition effectiveness?
Yeah, so I think that it's a really good question. And if you think about the challenges, it's really the follow through of the managers, but they also have to have the right foundation. So when I talked about, for example, the employee-centric manager, they really need to understand the different, components of what really drives their employees and what's important to them. And when they do that and they're reminded of that, they can then implement those strategies into their every day work life. But there is some learning and development that's needed. Some of the recognition and engagement strategies, again, just don't come as naturally to some managers. So for example, earlier I mentioned being specific in recognition. You might have managers who do a decent job at, saying good job, nice work, but are they really authentic and specific and giving that effective recognition? So manager effectiveness really takes work, but it starts with understanding the fundamentals. The ECM book is a great summary of those fundamentals.
All right, we have another question. What innovations are you seeing in the recognition space, especially for companies that have long tenured, matured programs?
Yeah, so in terms of innovations, you know, some of the things that I mentioned some of them in terms of, the fact that companies are really kind of mixing up the approach. If you have a long-standing program, trying to mix up, your approach with like the digital and the physical can really be helpful. Because again, when things start to get stale, you need to really spice things up. Things like the campaigns that can drive, challenges or contests. Those are things that, again, take people off the beaten path and start to think differently about recognition and engagement. So yeah, I think those are some examples that I would call out.
Then we have another question. What would be your top tip for marketing or promoting recognition whilst maintaining authenticity? I have
Say
an
that one more
answer.
time. What's a top tip for,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to make sure.
Marketing or promoting recognition while maintaining authenticity.
Yeah, that's a good one. I
Yeah.
think again, being, authentic takes work, but it also, being intentional, but also making sure that there's the right level of personalization. I think personalization is really, important when you think about the messaging that you're creating. So I think the more that you can tailor that communication to the individual that's receiving the message, it's going to be more well received. Good question.
Was a good question. I do have one other one. How can organizations ensure that their employee recognition programs are truly addressing individual motivations and values rather than just offering generic rewards to drive sustained performance and deeper engagement?
Yeah, I think, from certainly what I just mentioned, Melissa, around
Yeah.
personalization. I also think, if you're offering awards or rewards, offering a wide range of options so that you're really truly getting at the interest level of everyone. And again, curating the right experiences is something that, we've done for a long time for clients, but it takes, an understanding of the trends happening in the marketplace.
Great. We've got
A good
another
one.
one. We love the questions. Yeah. What trends are you seeing in the realm of formal recognition? So, example would be award ceremonies, gift giving. Are there things that need to be retired and other things that seem to be more exciting, relevant to employees? Good question.
Yeah. So we do see, certainly a lot more. I mean, depending on the industry, right? Because if you're in an industry where you are coming to an office and you have people congregating, in your office, it lends itself to more in-person celebrations, which are still happening, right? So obviously after COVID, we saw a long pause in more of the in-person celebrations, but we see them coming back. We see a lot more in-person celebrations coming back. But in terms of, events, those are things that, take a lot of, coordination, obviously, from the HR team. But there's ways that, you can simplify that with, kind of some event management tools. We offer some, for example, here at E2E. So there are ways to try to simplify and streamline it, but overall, we have seen a return to more events.
We have another question. We've seen an increase in our recognition program, which is great. We have all levels engaged. Fantastic. How can we prevent employees, so peer-to-peer recognition specifically, from gaming the system?
Yeah, so I think again, it starts with a platform that really takes that into account. So, putting the right, guardrails in place. So we have like a helper, for instance, that kind of really helps the user think about the type of recognition being given, the value. So like our award level helper, for example, makes it more appropriate and fair. But then budget management tools are important as well. So making sure that you've got the right budgets in place so that um, you're not kind of going off the guardrails in terms of what you want to spend. Obviously, for global programs, we've got things like cost of living adjustments and things that really make the point levels relevant to individuals in each country in which they operate. So really a mix of things, Melissa, that the platform really needs to help facilitate to ensure that there's no gaming.
We still have a few minutes if anybody does have any
No,
questions
those
right
are
now.
really good questions.
Yeah, those are good questions. I've got one more. Let's see. Generally speaking, do you have an estimated recognition budget amount per associate to spend per year?
Yeah, that's a good one. We have, and we do have some tools from a budget management perspective. We have like a budget calculator that we do. It really depends on, the industry that you're in, some of those benchmarks. So I'd be hesitant to kind of give an exact number, but when it comes to length of service or performance, we do have some benchmarks, again, depending on organizational size, industry, et cetera. So those are things that we could help with, but it is dependent on some of those variables.
We have another question. This is a good one. What would you recommend as a best practice for retirement programs?
Ah, well, let's see. And others might be able to help chime in too. But for retirement, again, when we talked about defining, length of service, again, it typically follows a little bit more of the length of service path when it comes to the retirement program. But ways that we're seeing organizations really kind of spice things up is with a more customized award, more personalized award. So, for example, we even had an organization recently that put together, a really nice frame of, images of that individual throughout their career. The more that you can customize it to the individual, make it personal, very, very important for that, recognition moment. But certainly a mix of, in person and something tangible, really important for retirement, something that you really don't want to screw up. This is a really important recognition moment. And the more that the manager is equipped to be able to facilitate that experience, the better. So really kind of goes hand in hand with some of the points that I mentioned around, just really equipping the manager. I've seen some examples of ones that have been done really, really well, and some ones that have not been as memorable.
What are the most effective recognition campaigns you've seen amongst your client base?
Yeah, that's a good one. So the ones that we've seen, again, the ones that we've seen most successful are the ones that are doing multiple campaigns they're intentional in their approach. They're spacing it out throughout the year. They're coming from a mix of messages. I mentioned earlier kind of the loss and gain messaging. And again, we can help with, campaign messaging. But those are the things that I would say, Melissa, they're intentional in their approach. They're creating a
Yeah.
schedule. They're having varying levels of messaging around, like I gave some examples earlier, like e-card, contests or challenges, points reminders, other initiatives, or even just fun things like, a specific day of the week that you want to do something fun with. But they're intentional in their approach throughout the year. It's not like a one and done thing. It's recurring.
And I would add on to that, Jeff, of just the messaging itself is try to make it more fun and more
Yeah,
interactive versus just a typical email that they might receive from the organization itself. Think of it almost as a marketing piece that, or an email you're opening up from a retailer that you all love. And it's like, what is the big promo or the discount, but it's what is the message? So trying to kind of think that way when you're creating that message for your emails.
that's right. Great point.
All right. I think we've Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think we have one time for one last question, and this is: what's your tip to avoid negative gamification, excuse me, in the recognition space?
Yeah, and I think there was another question too around gamification. I think the rules of, making sure that the rules of engagement are clearly understood. And that's where, again, those recognition champions that you have can really help in that area. Make sure that, the communication is well understood, that, it's being promoted in the right way. But then the platform itself should have the right guardrails to be able to prevent that from happening.
And I would even add on to a lot of the questions that have been asked is consistency. So, I think sometimes what happens in organizations is you have this big kickoff and you've got a couple of emails for the first 3 months, and then it just kind of goes to the side. Keep it top of mind in front of everybody. So is it a
That's right.
monthly email, quarterly, something that they know they're going to see on a consistent basis?
Yep.
All right, Jeff. Well, I think
Cool.
we are just at the top of the hour. I do want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank Jeff for leading this great session. Lots of great questions from the audience, so we appreciate participation. Be on the lookout for if you're a possible winner of the ECM ebook. And a reminder that the video version of this will be available both via email. We'll send that out to everybody here and on our website as well.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.